What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to basketball. And more importantly, welcome back to our season preview series, the series where we're going to go through every single NBA team before the start of the regular season. We're going really in depth with these videos. We're going to be talking about everything from rotation, what's their depth chart look like, what's their salary cap situation, what kind of draft assets do they have. Let's recap the offseason, everything that you need to be ready for the start of the regular season. In this video, we have the Brooklyn Nets, who they're very bleh at the moment. But anyway, make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I've responded to every single comment on my YouTube channel to this point, and I intend to keep on doing so. All right, let's get into it. Alrighty, y'all. As always, there's a lot to cover in this video, so let's not waste too much time and start talking about it. For those of you that are curious, this is my season preview spreadsheet. I'd like to build spreadsheets in a lot of my videos to kind of help explain and visualize, articulate all my thoughts and everything, give some visuals to the concepts that we're talking about. Really helps kind of set in stone everything. If you guys want access to this spreadsheet, it's pretty simple. All you have to do is leave me a comment saying, hey, I would like access to the spreadsheet. Nice and easy. I'll then drop you a link to the Discord. You can then hop on the Discord. Feel free to stick around and hang out. We're having discussions on there all the time with various different topics. But anyway, once you're on the Discord, shoot me a DM saying I was one of those people that want the spreadsheet. I'll then give you the spreadsheet. Nice, simple, easy, very, very cool. Anyway, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. You know, I don't think I've actually ever met like a Brooklyn Nets fan out in the wild. Like, where are you guys? Can you guys like kind of give me a hey, what's up in the comments or something like that? I need to know that you guys actually exist because I feel bad. You guys have had just the most like up and down like last like 15, 16 years, right? I mean, I feel like the relevancy of the Nets, like at least within like recent memory, really peaked with that like Kevin Garnett, Paul Pierce like trade, right? And like they go and get those guys, they bring them all in. A lot of hype around that team and that starting lineup. That team doesn't accomplish much. They mortgage their whole future and everything. That team falls apart. They're like, what are they going to do? And then the Nets went and did this super cool thing that was really, really smart, where they just started buying up all the bad contracts that were made during that one really weird offseason. And they're like, yeah, we'll take your bad contract. Just give us some picks, right? And during that time, they had a coach by the name of Kenny Atkinson who came in and installed a really good culture to the team. They were fun, they were lively, they played really hard, and now all of a sudden, this team was like actually starting to come together and everything, and they had assets. They went and kind of built something up again, and then they traded it all again to go get like KD, James Harden, and Kyrie Irving. Fell for the same trap. Unfortunately, it didn't like go like necessarily bad. It's just players got hurt more so, because I mean they were pretty close to getting to the finals that one year. It's just they just couldn't keep everybody together, and so now they were in the same spot of like, all right, we don't really have much to show for everything at this point, so what do we do? And they made one big trade this offseason by trading Bridges over to New York, and they got some picks back, and now they've got a pretty good pick situation again. But they're in a really weird spot where like, where do we go from here? Because like, who are you building around? We don't know. This is probably the one team in the league that doesn't have like any sort of centerpiece player on the team. Like, there just isn't one. Every single guy in this team is expendable in some way or fashion. And so if we can hit on that a little bit, I mean, the team was 32-50 last year because they've got solid NBA players on the team, but we have them down as a selling team. There's plenty of other teams. Like, this team isn't rebuilding. It's not growing. Like, this team's still selling because they've got quality players on the team, and they don't have like some young player they're starting to build around or some star or something like that. They have a lot of solid role players on the team that are pretty tradable. You can move them somewhere else. So this team's still like, they're in like step one of starting over right now. And they sold their best asset and everything. They got some good assets back. They're probably not going to be too good this year, so they'll be tanking a pretty good amount. Spoiler alert, I know, for the end of the video when we do our standings predictions, but you guys anticipated that. And so now we're just using this year to be like, all right, do we have any diamonds in the rough or anything like that? Who else can we get on the court? What else can we trade? So let's talk about some of these goals. Keep selling, right? We already know that they've started that. I feel like as a Nets fan, you should like find some comfort in the fact that like, you know that they're selling at this point. They are giving into the rebuild. Like, that's at least got to be good, even though like you haven't even had the first year of like, okay, we have a young promising player or something like that, right? Like, this year is probably going to be pretty bleh for you. Like, in all honesty, like, you just kind of have to make it through this year if you're a Nets fan. So keep selling. Just keep selling whatever you can. Let's get whatever assets we can. Draft well. That's the next goal, unfortunately. That's not even really a season goal. It's just, look, you better be doing your scouting this season, because right now you just don't have a piece to be excited about. This is a very good draft class coming up. Like, that's what a lot of us are saying. I mean, I've already started to work with some people on it. It looks pretty good in my opinion. Like, there's going to be some game-changing players in my opinion. And so there's a decent chance that if you're a bad team this year, you got a good pick, well, something good could be happening. My other goal is be a trade hub. So not only should you be trading people, look to be the third team and some people. Maybe you can snag like a young player here or there, or grab a little asset here or there, just because you have the flexibility to move people around right now. And this season's just pretty bleh for you. So just be an asset to people, be an avenue of which to move people around. Just let assets pass by you and grab them as you can. Those are the goals. But anyway, let's talk about the offseason for these guys, because it was interesting. Alrighty, so here's our offseason page right here. Now, there's a couple different places where we note movable players and everything. We have drafted players. You guys understand that one. There's players that departed, meaning players that were on the roster last year that are no longer on the roster. And then players brought in is the opposite, people that weren't on the roster last year that are now currently on the roster. No players were drafted this year. They didn't have any draft picks, which is a really sad situation to be in when you're a team like this. But look, you guys made it through. You got some draft picks now going forward. We'll talk about those later in the video. But for the time being, you didn't get anybody. Sorry. It's just what happened. So no drafted players, no young players or anything like that. Players departed. Mikal Bridges, right? This guy is a phenomenal basketball player. You had him on the team for what, like a season and a half, something like that. Him and Cam Johnson were a cool little duo. I know they're good friends and everything, but you traded him to New York, made a lot of sense. You got some valuable picks out of it, and like the Rockets kind of came in, gave you your pick back, which was critical, right? So now you're not in this situation where you're bad and you don't have your own pick. You got some other interesting assets that you can move going forward out of it. Had to happen, right? Lonnie Walker, you didn't bring him back. Sounds like he's going to be with the Boston Celtics this year. Actually had a pretty solid season for them overall. He's going to be a nice fit for them. Dennis Smith Jr., they kind of gave him an attempt to see if anything interesting could happen with him. I feel like people are still just kind of being like, hey, like, that rookie season, is it ever going to come back? Like that promise that you showed, and it hasn't quite. Like, I don't want to be too derogatory with anything like this. Like, I kind of feel like the Knicks ruined his career a little bit before they cleaned up their franchise, and because, man, did he start out really promising. It's just like he hasn't figured out the jump shot really at all, and like we don't see the same level of explosiveness. Always, he did have one really crazy dunk last year, but nonetheless, like Dennis Smith Jr., is he on a team? I don't think so at this current moment, but I could be tripping. And then we got Bates Jop. He was just like a mid-season addition via trade or whatever, and he's no longer on the squad at this point. So there you go. Players they brought in, they got Bojan Bogdanovic, a guy that can, actually Nets fans know him as a guy that can get you 20 points any night because he did it for them at one point. He's pretty old at this point. We know that. Will he really be able to provide that? Will he even really be on the team the whole season? That's hard to tell. He seems like a prime buyout kind of guy. Like, that's what feels like is going to happen to him right now. He's still on the team right now, so he's rostered. I mean, he's a clear starter for the team. He can go get you some buckets. Good for him. You also got Shake Milton in that deal, who I really like Shake Milton, and he was really promising until some injuries kind of took him away, because he could play like the 1 through 3, which is kind of a rare combination for a guy his size, and you felt pretty comfortable about him, played pretty solid defense, could shoot the ball a little bit. Looking for a place to kind of bounce back a little bit. This is a good guy to probably take a chance on, see if you can kind of get an asset that grows a little bit under you. We'll see. And then they got Zaire Williams, who, like, that's a great guy to take a chance on in a season like this, right? Zaire Williams, really promising rookie season, like 6'8", 6'9" wing. Was looking like he might be able to be a nice 3-and-D player, and hell, maybe even a starter in the NBA at some point. It just kind of kept falling off in the coming years since then. And so now he's got 1 year left on his deal, or on his rookie deal. Needs a change of scenery, clearly. He goes now to the Nets, who they don't owe minutes to anybody, man. Like, they can throw whoever they want to out there this season. And so, yeah, let's see if we can't unlock something, right? Like, that's one of the few places on this team where you see, all right, young guy, maybe something here. So let's try and see if we can figure it out. But yeah, this offseason was pretty simple for that sense. Like, this trade of Bridges was major, obviously. Like, it's going to be a big difference maker for the Knicks, but obviously, like, them getting their pick back and everything, that's critical. So let's go talk about the rest of the roster now. Alrighty, y'all. So this is my favorite tab in the entire workbook. You know this. If you watch the Ideal Offseason series, that's basically what this is right here. It's a great way to look at a bunch of things. We can look at salary situations and rosters here, like what's their actual like cap lines that they're hitting. What kind of assets are we working with? What's our depth chart looking like? So there's a lot to cover in this. I always want to start off with the draft picks. We've been talking about that a decent amount. So let's just zoom right in and get right into it, right? We talked about them getting their own first round pick back. This is a good draft class. We wanted to get that pick back because we're probably not going to be a great basketball team this year, in all honesty. We're just not, most likely. Spoiler alert, not probably going to be a very good team. So you got your own pick back. That's really valuable. And look, you've got some other first round picks that you're probably going to get something in. So it looks like you're probably going to get it somewhere, some sort of complicated first round pick, meaning that there's like 3 or 4 different teams this could technically be. You have a Knicks first round pick this year. You have a Bucks first round pick, because I doubt the Bucks are going to be a lottery team, right? So you've got a lot of picks. So like, let's say the lottery gods don't even bless you or something like that. You might be able to move up or something like that. I doubt anybody's giving up like a Cooper Flag type draft pick or something like that. But look, you've got assets to work with to move up and go get like that star player that you want in here. And who knows, maybe 2 of these picks turn out to be something good, right? And now all of a sudden you've got 2 interesting young players coming in. You still have some second round picks as well. And then you look going forward, you've got your own pick. You've got some Knicks picks. That's good. You have a Sixers pick you can use as well. And there's many more past this. So look, like 2029 is going to be an interesting year again, because you've got like Nets and Knicks picks going forward. So you've got a lot of sparing picks already, and you don't want to acquire too many picks at once, but that's also not the worst thing to deal with either. The good news for this team is, like, yes, you should try to trade some of these guys to get some assets for them, because they do have some value. You don't want to miss them out. But also, this team doesn't have to worry about long-term contracts. I mean, look at this, right? Like, there's only a couple guys that are on long-term deals, and some of those guys will have some value. But otherwise, like, other guys are just going to fall off the books anyway, and so you just don't have to worry about it anymore. So really, you just have to survive this season in a lot of ways. Like, make a couple good trades. We talked about the goals on here, right? Sell a couple guys, get ready to draft and draft well, and then just be a trade hub. Be opportunistic. If something interesting comes around, take a stab at it. Why not, right? Like, what else could go wrong at this point, kind of thing. It's just kind of one of those seasons. Let's talk about salary cap space now. So if you guys don't know about the 4 different levels of the cap and everything, go watch one of my first couple videos in this series, either like the Celtics or the Grizzlies ones. I went into much more depth about the rules about each of these. But in essence, here's my breakdown. And by the way, are you guys getting sick of this? Those of you guys that watch this every single morning, shout out those of you drinking your coffee right now. I'm thinking of you. And I know one of you is looking at your coffee right now being like, is he watching me? You're damn right I'm watching you. But anyway, I explain this in every single video, and I'm going to explain it again. 4 levels or 4 lines that you have to be aware of when it comes to the NBA salary cap. You have the actual cap line itself, which is important, right? Then you have the luxury tax line. So you start paying a little bit more money when you cross that luxury tax line. Then you hit the first and second apron. These 2 levels are new in the NBA. They're very interesting. They make things very challenging. The reason that these were implemented was because the NBA was sick of all their best players being traded, and they needed a way to keep players where they were at, because it's not good for retention and like fan interest and things like that. And so basically, once you hit 0, like if this number were to hit 0, you've crossed the line and you've entered these aprons, the aprons start restricting you, meaning like, we're taking away your ability to do these trades or these trades. Like, you can't sign these people. You can only use this much money for this. Like, as you go deeper into it, when you get to the second apron, you're basically stuck. The only way that you can literally go is down. They're like, okay, your team has to get worse. It just has to get worse. Like, that's the only way you're moving right now. Otherwise, you're stuck with this team, which I like. I think it's good for the NBA. I think it's more interesting. I think it's more strategic, and players are going to stick around more. And I miss that from like my childhood, where like I could root for the same guys for a single franchise for a long time. I don't know. I just always thought that was kind of fun. And I felt like guys were just moving around too much, like it was AAU or something like that. If we can talk about the Nets now, the Nets have obviously crossed the cap. They haven't crossed the luxury tax yet, so that's awesome. They'll be a cheap basketball team to own this year, which I'm sure their like newer owner will be thankful for and everything. But so they just got a lot of operating room. They don't really have any restrictions as to what they can and can't do this season in terms of trades. And honestly, this team can probably get cheaper, right? But this also means you can get more expensive. Like, you could buy a bad contract or something like that, like the Nets have done in the past to acquire good assets or something like that. And look, teams are always going to be looking at the 3 or 4 other NBA teams this year that can actually like take on the bad contracts, because of these aprons, you can't just like sell people to anybody anymore. It's really difficult. There's very few teams that can actually absorb the money legally, and so the Nets will be one of those teams that people are calling. They're like, look, man, I got to get off this contract. Like, what do I have to give you to do it? They should be taking those calls every single time right now, because look, there's just nobody that important on this team currently. There's good players. Like, I can't stress that enough. There are good basketball players on this team. It's just there's nothing conducive to like measurable winning on this team. So that's something to keep in mind. But anyway, let's talk about the rest of the roster. Oh, the fabled story of Ben Simmons. I know. I know. We're just coming off the damn recording this. Shaq said all that weird stuff about Rudy Gobert and Ben Simmons. It's just so unnecessary. Like, I just don't understand the comment more than anything. Like, I don't know. That's just me. Ben Simmons was so good, and I've never seen a player just get bullied into mediocrity. And obviously, there's injuries and stuff too. But like, oh my goodness, like watching him play last year was actually so interesting. Like, he just looked like he was really going through the motions, but like he can still like run a whole offense at the same time. Like, he's like, yeah, I can go get these rebounds and like I can make all these great passes to like set everybody up. He's like, I'm just not gonna move though. Like, that's not me anymore. Like, nope, I'm not really doing that. I'm just kind of a hub. Like, I just kind of hold the basketball and make really good passes and then get back on defense. And he plays good defense still, and like that's cool. It's just, man, I've never seen something like this happen to a basketball player before. But one more year on the max contract and then he's gone, and I guess we'll see, depending on health and everything. I mean, we'll see if he gets another contract after this. That's so sad to say, because like he's still got value as a basketball player. It's just like, man, he's not like all NBA type dude anymore, and that's so crazy. What a great start to his career, and man, where is it gone? Nick Claxton just got his new deal and everything. Congratulations to him. One of the more versatile like perimeter defending bigs out there, which is really cool skill set. It makes you able to switch like 1 through 5 at times, which, like, for those of you that don't know, in basketball, if you can just switch things, that's the easiest way to defend anything. And so when you can do it with your 5-man and switch them onto ones like you can with Nick Claxton, that's a really cool asset to have. And here's my other thing too. I'm actually kind of glad they locked him up, because think about it. Let's say you go draft yourself like a nice young guard or something like that in this next draft. It's always really nice to have like a center that just knows what he's doing out there. Someone that you can just throw it up to, be run, jump, and dunk. He's going to block some shots for you, just kind of anchor a couple things. Brings a little bit of stability early on into a rookie's career. So it's good to have a guy like that. Then we got Cam Johnson, who, look, this guy's a valuable player. This is a guy that can get you 20 points any night. Kind of an off-season last year with some injuries and everything like that, but decent enough athlete, gets up and down the court. We know he's a great shooter, great teammate, a smart basketball player. $22 million, 3 more seasons left. You can get a pretty penny for a guy like this. You might be able to get a first-round pick and then another one with protections on it or something like that, or maybe some other young player that's interesting from a team that's trying to get just a little bit better. So that's a guy we might explore trading in this video. We always do a couple trade simulations or something like that in each video, so that could be one. We talked about Bojan a little bit. 1 year left on his deal, then he could be gone, so that's something to consider. Dorian Finney-Smith is on this team, apparently a guy that almost went for like 3 first-round picks at one point, and they said no, and I'm very confused how that happened. He's got a player option at the end of this season. I'd find it hard to believe he doesn't accept it unless he's really trying to just be on a winning team and he's still on Brooklyn. But he seems like a guy that you trade for a couple like smaller picks or seconds or something like that, or maybe an interesting young player or something like that, because a contending team could use the 3-and-D that he brings. 3-and-D guys that are like 6'7", like 6'6" to 6'8" wings are so valuable, and they're so hard to find. Somebody's going to want this guy. How many teams have we talked about already that were like, yeah, they could use a wing like this? Just makes too much sense. Dennis Schroeder. I feel like such a forgotten player in the NBA. Dennis Schroeder is like a dog, and I feel like should be on another team as well. He's made it very clear that he just wants to be a starting point guard in the NBA because he's good enough to. Like, there's no question about that. His defense and his scoring, like, because his scoring is not even like that crazy. It's literally just like him just beating people off the dribble constantly and then being a crafty finisher around the rim, which, like, that's a great skill set to have. It's just like, dang, like, he just really makes that work for him, and he's a good defender. So, like, hey, like, you've got that for this season. It doesn't feel like you need it necessarily. So I don't know. I say you flip him into something else, but that's just me. We talked about Zaire Williams. He's going to get a chance to maybe show something on the court this year, so good for him. Cam Thomas. If you wanted to make a point that he's an interesting young player on the team, I won't fight you on it. We should all play the game this year of how many points per game will Cam Thomas put up this season, because look, there's certain dudes that you meet in your time in the basketball world, like I have. I'm a guy that's been at the Division II, Division I, like NBA scene. I've been around G League and stuff enough times. A lot of these guys exist, these Cam Thomas guys that just get absolute buckets that people wonder why they don't make it in the NBA, and it's because like they just don't have another skill set like about them. And look, Cam Thomas, like I'm not saying that's necessarily him, it's kind of him. Like, he's out there to score. You have to be able to do it at his kind of level to make it in the NBA, and that's what he can do. He can literally get you 30 to 40 points any night if you just put him out there. What else is he gonna do? Nothing, probably. Not much, like, to really contribute to like an NBA style offense or anything like that. And is he really a guy you build around long term? Almost certainly not. Just because, like, look, us like high level coaches, we've just seen guys like this. It doesn't actually win you basketball games, but Hey, Cam Thomas is on the team. Leave me a comment saying how many points is Cam Thomas going to average this season. It should be interesting to watch, if nothing else, right? You have Dayron Sharp, excuse me. I'm tired. It's been a long week. I had a whole photo shoot thing yesterday. Dayron Sharp is an interesting young player that they found. The Nets are one of the few teams that actually have like two pretty capable big men on a team, and there's a lot of teams that need big men right now. Maybe Dayron Sharp is a guy that you could flip for something else, because like I don't think he's necessarily like, yes, we need this guy as a long-term center good, but I feel like he could maybe get you something, a young player at a different position or something like that. I'm sure like a New Orleans Pelicans or like a Memphis Grizzlies would love a Dayron Sharp. So something to throw out there, right? Noah Clowney, another young big man that we didn't really just get. They had 2 first-round picks last year, like back-to-back. They both really didn't see the floor at all. Noah Clowney, didn't see much out of him. Don't know where we're going with him necessarily, but he's on the team, got a team option. Dariq Whitehead, saw even less of him. I think he was only out there for like a game and a half or something like that, and he was hurt the rest of the year, so guess we'll see. Talked about Shake Milton a little bit. Trendon Wofford is an interesting guy. Kind of a spacing, like, power forward, if you will, but maybe a little bit undersized and, like, has shown a little bit more of a skill set. So he'd be a guy that if he got some more minutes on the floor, I wouldn't be, like, upset about it. Just kind of curious to see what happens. Then we have Keon Johnson, who's, I mean, how many minutes did Keon get? Yeah, he got 61 minutes. So that's what you got out of Keon. I mean, he went 4 for 10 from 3. You can only make the shots that you take, right? Went 11 for 12 from the free throw line. Got him 3 assists, 5 TOs, 31 points in total. Hey, that's better than I did in the NBA last year. And now, here's an interesting name. Jalen Wilson, the guy at the bottom of the salary chart right here. Who's Jalen Wilson? Well, if you guys were watching the Nets at all last season, which again, I'm not convinced Nets fans actually exist, but you would have seen Jalen Wilson come onto the court at a random time last year and put up quality numbers. Like, was coming up, he was starting for them for a little bit, kind of a call-up type dude, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, here's a little something right here. This is interesting. The stats may not look incredible. 43 games. The efficiency wasn't that good. You only saw 5 points a game, but there was enough that you saw out of him where you were like, okay, there is something here, but what is it? Followed up by a promising summer league. You're like, okay, like what are we going to get out of him this year? Is this like, look, he's a bigger wing or whatever, and he can move with the ball a little bit. That's kind of cool. He showed the ability to hit some timely threes at points from last year. Okay, how far can Jalen Wilson go? Let's figure it out, right? Like, somebody figure it out. By the way, both of these guys have team options after this year, and both of them aren't completely guaranteed, so they don't necessarily have to be on the roster. I would imagine Jalen Wilson most likely will, because we have seen some interesting things out of him. Keon, probably more so up for debate. All right, so that was the roster in itself. Let's take a look at the depth chart really quick. If you look at the point guard position, again, quality point guard, Dennis Schroeder. After that, I do have Ben Simmons, just because, like, why not? I mean, you could put him any position here, and if you argue with me in the comments about it, like, you're just being nonsensical. It doesn't matter. It literally doesn't matter with Ben Simmons. Shooting guard, you got Cam Thomas, you got Shake Milton, Keon, Dariq Whitehead. Not the greatest group, but one guy that can get you 30, so that's great, I guess. Good for them. You got Bojan, right? And then you got Jalen Wilson and Zaire, so 2 guys that you're trying to get on the court. Bojan, who knows if he's on the court for the entire season or something like that, probably a buyout type guy, so maybe one of these guys gets to start by the end of this season. You can tell, like, look, there's not a lot of long-term thinking here necessarily, so let's see if we can find something. Power forward, you got Cam. Love Cam, Dorian Finney-Smith, and an interesting Watford. You could end up trading both of these guys, and then who knows, maybe you're starting Jalen and Zaire. Like, I think that could be a valuable thing. At the center position, you actually feel pretty good between, like, these two, so maybe you could trade one of them. Noah Clowney here, though, at the end. Are we going to give him a chance to develop it all? Hard to say, right? I mean, I'd like to keep Claxton. I think that makes sense. I think you should explore trading Sharp, but I'm not going to hate you if you keep him anyway. So a lot of interesting things you can move here. It's not a great basketball team overall. Like, we just don't expect a lot of wins out of them, but let's explore some of these trades and some asset dumps or anything. Spoiler alert, none of these are going to make the Nets any better. All right, here's an easy one that I think would make some basic sense. By the way, we're back here on Fanspo. This is where we do all of our trades and everything. I think there has to be a logical trade between the Warriors and the Nets here. Like, there's probably like 4 or 5 of them that we could really draw up here. But I think the Warriors would be a very good home for Mr. Cameron Johnson. So let's just set up a scenario. Let's say Andrew Wiggins, not working, right? It's not working in Golden State still. Obviously, he's had some personal issues and stuff off the court. Feel bad for him and everything. But let's say he just can't find it. Again, right? We need another wing that can kind of do something for this team. Maybe a guy that spaces the floor a little bit more. maybe we start off with a little swap like this. Something like that, but we also want to give them like a more agile and like interesting center. You throw a Dayron Sharp at them, someone that they could use right away. Then we get the picks out and stuff like that, right? What are we giving them? Maybe we give them like a protected like 2027 pick or something like that. Top 5 protected. You slide that over to them. Maybe like a second round pick as well or something like that. You try a trade like this. Where do we get to? You got a success out of that. That could be interesting. The Nets take back a guy. They get some picks back or something like that. And you could say you probably want a little bit more for these guys or something like that. Maybe a Moses Moody is somehow thrown into this or something. You know what? Let's close this out quick. Like I could totally see a Moses Moody as like a part of this, right? Then you get an interesting young player that you can feel good about it back, and that trade should work as well. Cool. There you go. How do you guys feel about that? That's an interesting one, right? I think that could be kind of cool. Let's explore one other one, though. I'm wondering if they can help my favorite team, the Chicago Bulls, out. All right, let's get the Bulls here. The other thing I kind of want to do, like I'm trying to connect dots in my head right now, and I do all this stuff live. Like I don't really think through this stuff beforehand, so you guys just bear with me for a second, all right? There's a way to do this. There's a way to do this and make this all make sense. How do we get a center on the Pelicans and Zach LaVine to the Bulls? Because the Bulls don't want Zach LaVine anymore. Somebody needs to like this is an opportunity to sell Zach LaVine off, right? So if the Bulls can do it in one move, they shouldn't have to lose a ton of assets to necessarily make that happen, right? Because the Pelicans would be more than happy to take a Nikola Vucevic because they need a center. So let's start off with that. Vucevic over to the Pelicans, Zach LaVine over to the Nets, right? We start off with something basic like that. Who moves over then? Ben Simmons moves over. The Bulls get off their money relatively quickly then. So let's just try this. Where are we at? What's kind of the situation? So Bulls and Nets, yep, that one works. The Pelicans, yep, they didn't actually trade anybody, so that makes perfect sense. So they need to cut like 20-ish million off here. That's where CJ McCollum comes in, and that's where things could get kind of interesting, right? So how can we move CJ McCollum off the roster as well? Is there any way that he can also go over to the Nets? The Nets don't need anybody else, right? So let's just try and take this step by step. Yep, so they can only take back forward. They need to cut like $36 million, yada, 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 yada. Okay. How else can we make this work, right? So this is where like Bojan gets cut or something like that. So what if we modify the contract? We waive for a specified amount over 1 year. Let's say that, I don't know, he gets waived for like, I don't know, like $3 million, something like that, just cuz. So he gets waived for that much. What happens now? It's failed. You need to cut $36 million from the Nets incoming trade still. Yep, that's totally fine. I just want to make sure that that money works in some capacity. You don't necessarily have to do this. I just want to make sure that they can take on enough roster spots or whatever. So Dennis Schroeder, do we move you? Do we move a Nick Claxton? It's probably a Cam Johnson, right? Like that's probably someone that just has to move. Can he move over to like the Bulls or something like that? Let's just, again, we're trying this out live, seeing where we get to. They need to cut another 12 million, but it's actually still good. So then you have a Dorian Finney-Smith or something like that. Okay, give me a second. Does Dorian Finney-Smith then end up on the Pelicans somehow? Does that make a ton of sense? Not necessarily, but you know what? We're doing it anyway. Do we have a successful trade? We do, but how much sense does this make right now? And there'd have to be picks involved. The Bulls sell LaVine and Vucevic. They're going to need a pick somewhere. The Nets bought people that they don't necessarily need. They need picks somewhere. Okay, that's kind of interesting. So maybe the Bulls just end up with more of a net negative or something else, right? There could probably be another flip of assets as well, in the sense that like, okay, let me think this through just really quick, actually. I don't know, y'all. I've been trying to make something work where maybe the Bulls get back a Brandon Ingram or something like that. I've been thinking about this one just probably too long at this point. Maybe there's not something here. Maybe there is. If you guys can think of something, you guys let me know at the end of the day. I don't know. You'd have to put some other picks in it and stuff to obviously make the rest of the logic work, but I'm just trying to start the conversation at the end of the day. At the end of the day, that's not really what this video is about. All right, now that we've talked about like some possibilities in the roster situation, some different trade ideas, let's move on to the rotation. I have a question mark on here because who knows what the actual rotation is going to be. This rotation is probably going to go everywhere this season just for a multitude of different reasons. I just like to lie it out as like a baseline of like where are we kind of standing right now? Like what would we kind of draw up if we were a coach? What would be the goal of like average minutes to get these players to? Starting out with the starters, Schroeder. could possibly be the second scorer on this team, like the second leading scorer. It's probably him or Cam Johnson, I would guess. He's going to get above 30 minutes, right? Just because like we don't necessarily have another super reliable point guard on the team. Cam Thomas, give him 30. Let's see what happens. Maybe give him more. Who knows? Bojan, just under 30. He's getting a little bit older. And then 31 to Cam and Nick. Why not, right? Like, you might as well try to win a couple games here and there. Dorian Finney-Smith's going to get a couple because he's a quality player. Jalen Wilson, let's give him some solid minutes this year. See what we got in the dude. 18 minutes for Ben Simmons. See if we find anything in the dude, right? Because at one point, this was an all-NBA talent. See if we got it in him. Day'Ron Sharpe, quality player. He plays all the minutes that Nick Claxton's not playing. And then Zaire Williams, give him a little something here at the end, see what he's got, right? Maybe earn some more playing time. And then you got the rest of them here, Shake Milton, Watford, Clowney, Keon, and Dariq Whitehead, right? Again, this is going to change a whole bunch throughout the season. It's just gonna, right? Like, I feel weird even evaluating this roster a lot of the times because there probably is just going to be a lot of turnover. And look, after this season, like, all these guys are going to be gone anyway. I mean, let's just do like some basic math actually to be like, what kind of money are we working with like after this season? Oops, I didn't mean to delete you. I meant to delete you. All of a sudden we've got 62 million in cap space. And now you're not even going to really use all of that, but nonetheless, like, you're going to have a lot of flexibility to go out there and just be ready to take in some guys and hopefully just make some money as a franchise. But you know what? Let's still go into the lineups data from this last season and kind of see what was working for them. Let's try to be consistent with these videos. Normally we'd be like, hey, what lineups worked? Which ones didn't? It's just so much of it's going to be different this year. We don't really have much to compare it to because, like, look at this. What was their best lineup last year? Cam, Dorian Finney-Smith, Spencer Dinwiddie, Bridges, and Claxton. You don't have two of those guys. You're probably going to move Finney-Smith somehow. So it's like, I don't know. I don't really know what I should take from this. The best lineup they had with Dennis Schroeder was with Cam Thomas, Dorian Finney-Smith, Bridges, and Claxton. You'll notice Bridges was a part of like all of their positive. He's just a part of all their rotations because the dude just plays all the time. That's just nuts right there. That's consistency. You got to love that. So again, not much we can take from that. They're 3-man rotations here. Like, anything interesting here? Dinwiddie was a guy. Nope. Then you got Bridges, Dinwiddie, Finney-Smith. Nope. Dinwiddie, Finney-Smith. Nope. Like, I don't know. I just don't really know what we can necessarily draw from this, so I'm not going to BS you guys with just nonsense stats or anything like that. This is just going to be a completely different team this year, and we're just going to have to deal with that. So with that being said, let's not waste your time. Let's get into the standings and the predictions right here. So where are we at with the rest of the East and everything right now? We have got the Celtics at a 1, Knicks, Sixers at a 4, Heat at a 7. This one was controversial when I posted it. That video went up today of when I'm recording it, and a couple days ago from when you guys are like seeing it. I liked that. I liked the controversy that one drew. By the way, go share that video with your friends and everything. I want to hear their opinions on it. Then you got the Bulls here and the Pistons here. Where are the Nets going to go? Drum roll, please. No, they're the worst. They're the worst. This team's going to be the worst. Like, it has to be, right? Them and the Trailblazers have to be the worst. I think that's fair. I think that's more than fair to say. Like, this team's not going to be very good. A lot of these guys probably aren't even going to be on the roster anymore, and it's not like they're bringing in better players. At least we don't think so. So unless anybody tells me something different, that's where I've got the Nets right now, as a good old 15 seed. So, yep, sorry. Make it through this season, Nets fans. It'll be okay. Look for any glimmers of hope you can and latch on to those so that you can be the smart one in the room to be like, but I saw Jalen Wilson do this. Like, this guy could be a solid role player for us when we start building things one day. That's what you're looking for this season. Things like that. In the meantime, though, I do want to hear your guys' thoughts and opinions. This is where I pass it on back to you. Go into the comment section. Let me know your thoughts, your ideas, trades, anything. What should this team be looking for? Your thoughts on the franchise in general. Just make sure you keep it respectful. As you guys always know, if there's any just like stupid comments, you're just being rude for whatever reason, or you're just being like completely illogical and just nonsensy, I'm just going to hide you from the channel. I want this to be a conversation, a place where people can share their thoughtful opinions and everything. Not like the rest of the internet where they just spew garbage onto a keyboard because they can. But hey, in the meantime, thank you guys so much for watching. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, and comment. I'll always respond to your comments. Share this with your friends and everything. And hey, I'll make sure I'm here with you guys through the rest of the off season and everything. We'll get through this together. Thanks so much. We'll see you later. Bye.